Welcome to part 1 of how I built a customizable taillight for a Triumph Street Triple using aerospace-grade aluminum, 3D scanning, and some retro graphics. This project took over a year to finish, so to keep things interesting, I've condensed the process into 2 videos. In part 1, we'll cover bike disassembly, getting the taillight designed in CAD, and generating some 3D renderings. I'm Isaiah. I've been building parts for motorcycles for years now. I rebuilt my CB750, took my monster on countless trips up and down the US coast, and more recently I've been entering my bikes into motorcycle shows. The taillight will be built for a 2018 Street Triple. Similar to LED animations we've been seeing on cars, every time the bike is turned on, the taillight will display a brief animation prior to displaying the running light. The cool part is that the taillight will have a bunch of animations stored on it, so at the press of a button, I can customize the startup animation and have a completely different look. I got things started by researching what was already on the market. I wanted to know what taillights were out there and if they had similar capabilities. The Street Triple I'm working with is already equipped with a Moto Dynamics taillight with sequential turn signals, which at the time of filming this video is the coolest feature available on any taillight. Once I disassembled the bike, I could start 3D scanning. Breaking the bike down was a pretty straightforward process as I only needed the taillight and the lower fairing. Because of the finish of both the fairing and the taillight, it took fiducials, hairspray, and a few hours to get a good scan, but eventually I got what I needed. Motorcycles are all sculpted to be slick and sharp. I wanted this taillight to be different. All the Street Triple taillights I've come across look identical to the taillight Triumph designed over a decade ago. When I started this project, I knew I wanted to build something that Triumph and other aftermarket suppliers would never build. I leaned into my love for minimalism and retro geometric shapes that have started to make a comeback. 3D modeling took a few weeks to get right. I got started by developing the taillight in 2 halves. One half had the LED grid that would be displaying the startup animations, and the other had the structure that would mount the light back to the bike. In the half with the LEDs, the 8-bit pattern acted as a blank canvas to showcase a bunch of startup animations. Once the 2 halves were ready to go, it was time to combine them. The challenge here was to maintain CNC manufacturability to support my material choice of 6061 aluminum. I also had to keep a close eye on the thickness throughout the part. The thicker the part, the heavier it'll be, and I had a goal of matching the OEM taillight's weight. After a few weeks, I landed on a clean look that merged the mounting requirements with a cyberpunk taillight extrusion. While modeling out the geometry for the light, I also modeled out some smaller components like a diffuser, reflector, and a space claim for the control board, which had LED locations and mounting holes. From here, I went into KeyShot and rendered out a few angles of the taillight. Once I decided to make it black, it really started coming to life. I wrapped the design phase with a render of the Street Triple on a paddock stand using AI and Photoshop. That's all for part 1. In part 2, I'll share the remainder of the process from getting the PCB working on the bench, playing with 3D printed prototypes, and installing the CNC machine taillight.